Okay, everybody, this is chapter 3, section 6. This is called compound inequalities. Really, what compound inequalities means is we're look at two inequalities being drawn on the same number line. So there's a way that we need to really understand how to draw these on a number line. We're going to introduce some new kind of notations for you to understand how to write the particular inequality sign. So really important notes here. Really stress that you're going to go back over these notes and look at them again, so study them. Once again, I'll go kind of quick here with notes, so if you get kind of behind, just pause it, get your notes caught up, and then hit play again, okay? If you guys could go ahead and write down this first definition, compound inequality, and it's two distinct inequalities joined by the words and or. And there will be something really specific on those words kind of generating what the number line picture will look like, how you draw these. So it'll be really important to make sure that you kind of go back over these, okay? The word and, when you look at the word and you're drawing a graph, the graph or solutions are going to overlap the inequalities, okay? So we're going to actually draw the lines towards each other. And so your one inequality might be going this way, another inequality be going that way, so they're going to cause an overlap, and we're going to use the values that are overlapped. Okay, so if you had 0 and you had like x is greater than -3 for this one, so if you draw a number line and put this on there, and then you had another inequality, it was something like this, greater than or equal to 6, let's say. Okay, so I'll find these values. So at -3, it was just greater than, so open circle, and it goes this way. And then x is let's say is less than or equal to +6. Okay. Put a solid point on it because it's less than, but my arrow is going to be going in that direction. Okay, so therefore I get an overlap, and its values between -3 and +6. Okay. For or, the values are going to be distinct for each inequality. Okay, I'll use the same values that I used before. So if you go ahead and draw a number line and put 0 on there, I'll use the same ones, except I'm going to turn the signs around in this case. So x is now less than -3, and x is now going to be greater than or equal to +6. Okay. So I'll graph those. This will once again be an open circle here, but now my line goes this way. Okay, I come over to 6, and see if I got it right. No, 1 off. Sorry, hold on. 6 here. Okay, it's still a solid point because it's also equal to, but now I draw it that way. Now I have two really separate inequalities because they're going in opposite directions. That's what's going to help me the most. Okay. All right. Interval notations. This is kind of the thing I was talking about a little bit at the very beginning. That we're going to have these kind of different brackets when we have values that will work, and we want to put them together. Interval notations have a connection with the signs that we're going to use. So less than and greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to have specific brackets. Okay. So if you could write down interval notation, and then this is the definition for it. Okay, it's used to describe uninterval on a number line. So it's taking in the words and or. For the interval notation, to describe that notation, we're going to use parentheses and brackets, and then also we're going to have infinity, because if you guys remember back in the earlier sections, we draw our lines on a number line, but it just kind of goes infinitely in one particular direction a lot. And the same thing is going to happen here. Okay. So for parentheses, the parentheses work kind of as less than or equal to. The endpoints are not included. So remember, that's an open circle at whatever value that you have. Okay, so we're going to use parentheses to indicate that I can't use the endpoints in my number. So if I give you an example here, if it was just less than or greater than, I would draw two parentheses, because I'm going to, in compound inequality, I have two actual inequalities that work together. If I use the numbers I had before, I had -3 and +6, but in this case, both the symbols were either less than or greater than. Okay. For brackets, for brackets is when we have an infinity, I guess. The brackets, let's pull up both. The brackets still work as like a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, and that means the endpoints are included. So brackets are going to look something like this. Okay. And if I use the numbers we had before, it was 3 and 6. Okay, if I had just a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, I would use brackets to show that, hey, you need to use those two endpoints as part of your values that we're going to be working on. Okay, we use the symbol sideways 8 for infinity, and that's if it goes on forever. Then infinity would be, you could go in a negative direction, you can go in a positive direction. If it's in a negative direction, we just need to put a negative sign in front of the infinity sign. So, you know, it's going that way to the left, basically, on a number line, infinitely. Okay. On anything that's going to be infinite, you're always going to use just a parentheses, because there is no real endpoint for infinity. Okay. If you looked up here, the value, if you guys can go ahead and write these values down, we have up top as examples. At -2, it's a parenthesis, so it would be something like x is less than -2. But at 5, it's going to be, I'm sorry, this one, got that backwards here. Because I'm going towards +5, so x would be greater than -2, but it would, the brackets show that it was just greater than. I couldn't use -2. And then this one would be x is going to be less than or equal to +5, because the bracket shows that it could be equal. Okay. For this middle one, it'd be x is going to be greater than 3 and greater than infinity. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, that will be equal to, because it's a bracket. Getting these mixed up here. I'm going too fast. You gotta slow down. And I gotta be neat. Okay. Okay. For this last one, x would be greater than 0 or equal to, and x would be less than or equal to 6. Okay. Okay, so there's kind of using brackets and parentheses, really important. You got that down. Make sure that you make the association between a bracket and being either less than or greater than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. Okay. The parentheses just go for just less than or just greater than. Parentheses go with open circles. Brackets go with closed circles. Okay. Here we go. So all real numbers greater than or equal to -2. So I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to put x here greater than or equal to -2. So I'm going to write this kind of backwards a little bit, because then over here I'm going to do this part. X is less than 6. So we're going to have to kind of get in the habit of writing this out as 1. And one of these is going to be kind of backwards. Okay. If I just look at it, I'll do this for you on this one. X is greater than or equal to -2. and then the second one, x is less than 6. So you could go ahead and graph each one, but we really want to get you guys into making, taking those two statements and writing it as one. So the signs actually will typically always point to the left or always point to the right. It's just you got to be able to read it and maybe turn one of them around. Okay, but let's go ahead and graph this. So if you could draw a number line and put 0 on it. Well, let's do the first part. All numbers that are greater than -2. So you've got to read it right. See, I even screwed that one up. It's really important that we read. Okay. So greater than -2. I'm going to put open circle at -2. My line's going to go that direction because it's telling me that. But then the second one, x is less than 6. So I'm going to find 6, open circle at 6, and let me label these two, and the arrow's going to the left. You see these are going towards each other now, and so we're going to be able to I just darken it in. That means this between these two numbers, all these numbers will make my inequality true. Okay, is 0 greater than -2? Yes. Is 0 less than 6? Yes. Remember, I'm trying to find, I can find many values to make it work. And I want to, if 0's in this particular region now, that's just an easy number to pick and to use, okay? So most of the time you could probably use 0, and it just makes it easier, okay? If I wanted to write an interval notation for this, okay, so let's just take our two numbers. It was open circle. Remember, open circle goes with parentheses. I usually take the smallest number, in this case -2, and I put that in first. And I put the other end of the line here, or the overlapped area, that was 6, and it was less than. So remember, less than goes, less than. And remember, less than goes with a parentheses also. So that's the interval notation that will work for that number line, okay? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on that, but I think it's important that we kind of just do this all together. I think we have a couple problems to just deal with interval notation, but I'm going to try to do everything together, okay? For this one, we're going to go ahead and find 0 on your number line if you draw a number line. And I'll write the 2 out separately, but then we'll write it as 1. So all real numbers, and whenever you see that, that usually means x, are less than 0. So x less than 0, or greater than or equal to 5. So x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead at 0. I'm going to go ahead. It's an open circle at 0 because it's just less than, and it tells me go left. Okay. X is greater than or equal to 5, so greater than means a solid point, and 5, and the line's going to go right. Okay, so now I've got a gap, and if you go back, this word or usually tells me that I'm going to have a gap. Okay, if I go back to the previous question, it said and less than. That means they went towards each other. Okay. So if we add some notes, and is towards, or we use the word overlap also on that. If you get an or in the problem, in the statement, then it's going to be a gap. Okay. But just, you got to be careful here too. In this part was greater than or equal to, that defined the sign that we used. But this or is going to tell me maybe kind of a little bit how my graph's going to look. Okay. Then let's go ahead and write this as a 1. So x here is going to be less than 0, but it's going to be greater than or equal to 5. Okay. So we kind of write it as 1. We're going to go ahead and write our interval notation. So my smallest one was 0. It couldn't be 0. And my biggest one is going to be 5. But it was also equal to, so that makes me write a bracket. Okay, and that will help me also then to draw stuff later on. Okay, so there you go. Next section, if you guys can go ahead and write this inequality in. This is a compound inequality. There's really a couple different ways to do this problem, but let's do it all together and work it out with it just being written the way it is. I think that's going to be really the easiest. What I want you guys to understand is I really have three parts to this question. I got a left side, I have a middle, and I got a right. And I want to solve this like I solve an equation, but I'm going to be solving it through all three parts now, just not like the left and the right that we're kind of used to. I've got to solve it all together at once, okay? So really what I'm trying to do is get m by itself. So that means I need to get rid of this -4. And to do that, I do the opposite. I'm going to add 4 to get rid of it, okay? But I'm going to do it on all three parts. So the left, the middle, and the right, I'm going to add 4. So that's pretty critical, a lot different than what we're used to. But I really think that we could do this. Just it's a little bit different, so we got to get this down. Okay, so when I add 4 to -3, it's going to get me a +1. Okay, when I add 4 here, that makes that go away. I get just m, and I'm going to keep the sign. Okay, I didn't divide or multiply by a negative, so that's good. Over here, I'm going to get 4 minus 1 is 3. I'm going to go ahead and keep the sign there also. Okay. Now I've got to really be careful and read this. M is, if I go back here, M is greater than or equal to +1. So you say in my head, it's greater than or equal to. What's going to happen is because we're a compound, we think I have to draw it that way. But remember, this is kind of backwards for us. So I got to think backwards. So that means it's going in this direction. Okay, and then the second part, it's written how we're kind of used to. M is less than 3, so I find 3, and it's less than, just less than, so that's an open sign, and it goes this way. So now I've got that overlap on that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and write in my brackets and parentheses, interval notation is what I was thinking of. I'm sorry, that was at 1. And this is after I solved it. It was at 1. And then it was a parentheses because it was open circle at 3. Okay, so obviously let's pick 2 and see if this actually works. Okay, if I put 2 in, I'll write it over here again. If I put 2 back into the original equation, I get, put 2 in for m because 2 is right here, so that's an obvious one that should probably work. If I did all our math right, 2 minus 4 is a -2, and that. Okay, so go back and let's say this. You can say it left to right if you want. -3 is less than or equal to -2. Well, that's true. -3 is smaller than -2, but then I'm going to have to say this one again. Is -2 less than -1? And it is. Okay, so that what we did find for m actually worked. Okay. All right. Okay, this is a pretty tough question here for us. This is a question that's used a lot. Maybe not, this specifically in this particular wording, but questions that we can use. To earn a B in our algebra class, you have to achieve an unrounded test average of between 84 and 86 inclusive. That means that I could get those two numbers, okay? So it's kind of like inclusive means equals. You scored 86, 85, and 80 on the first 3 tests. What possible scores can you earn on the 4th and final test to earn a B? Okay, so what we're going to do here is, remember, average is kind of what this question is asking about, test average, okay? So remember, to get average, I add up all the scores that I can get, And they're talking about 4 tests, but they only gave me 3. So I need a 4th test. I don't know what I can get yet, but I'm going to do that. Okay. Remember, to get average, you add up all the numbers and then you divide it by the number that you have. So eventually I will take 4 tests. Okay. And it says inclusive. Now what we're going to do is make a compound inequality. I have a lower value that I can get, and I have a bigger value that I can get, 84 and 86. Okay. And inclusive meant it could be equal to. So I could get hopefully a score that's either equal to or greater than 84. And to still stay in that B, then I'd have to get a score that maybe is equal to or less than 86. Okay. So hopefully you understood that, followed how you need to set up an equation. I'm going to go ahead. I want you guys to understand that this middle part is really a fraction. And we don't like fractions. We're going to go and get rid of it. How do you do that? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. And really when I'm doing this too, I'm multiplying the middle by 4 also. So really, all I'm really trying to do is just make that go away. I made it go away, but I had to multiply the outside pieces by 4. Okay. So when I get that, I get this is 336 less than or equal to. Over here, I'm going to get 344. I'm going to go ahead and add the middle 3 numbers up. Okay, so I got 3 numbers that are in the middle plus this x, so it's going to be whatever those 3 are plus x. So I think I get 241 plus x. No, I'm sorry, 251 plus x. Well, okay. Let me just triple check my math. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And now what you can do is I'm going to solve this for x. So I'm going to get kind of like the last question. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 251 from all 3 sides. Okay. So a little bit different. All it does is really make the middle go away, but then it gives me some values on each end. Okay. Give me what's going to happen is going to give me a range of scores I can get, so I can earn this B in my class. So if I, on the left-hand side, I'm going to have to come over here because I'm running out of room. When I subtract 336 minus 251, I get this. Okay. And I called that 4th test x. And then I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side and solve that, and I get this. Okay. So that means on this last test score in my math class, if I want to get a B, I have to get somewhere between 85 and 93 points. Okay. I think, you know, for you guys, some of you guys that really watch your scores, I think there's a couple apps that you can use to be able to kind of, it'll generate that for you. And you can use to be able to figure that out without really having to do it. But that's, you know, that's what your phone or your computer or whatever you're using the app on, that's what it's finding for you. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead to problem number 4. If you guys could go ahead and write this out and draw yourself a number line, and we'll go ahead and solve these. We're going to, it's kind of nice because they're giving us 2 separate ones, so therefore I can solve each one separately. Okay. Draw your number line, put 0 in it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys do this one on your own. Let you solve each one and then graph each one separately, and then we're going to look at a system of notations. Okay. All right. So if you want to hit pause and we can go in, and I'll put the solution up, and then you can hit play when you're done. So there's your two solutions. I had to be really careful with this one because I had divided by a -4. Remember that rule when you divide or multiply inequalities by a negative, that you need to flip the sign. Okay. Now this one is going to get me two different intervals. When you have or, you're going to have to write two intervals because you got really two parts of the number line. So at -3, it was an open circle. So that meant that I used parentheses, and now I'm going in a negative infinite direction, okay? And remember, with infinity, we always use parentheses, okay? For the second part over here, in +1, it was an open circle, so that meant parentheses, and now it's going in a positive infinite direction. So I would use parentheses again for anything that has infinity. Okay. Okay, so that takes us to the end. Really important section to go back. That average question where we had a bunch of stuff that we were doing, that's a test question. You really need to go back over that. You really need to know the interval notation, how the brackets are associated with either open or closed circle and the parentheses. And then what you always use parentheses with anything that has infinity in it, okay? All right, so that's good. That's good for today. If you guys go ahead, if you have questions, wherever, make sure you get a hold of me and we can go over stuff together.